Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to ADA Driver Training, a webinar from National RTAP, where we'll be introducing our new ADA Driver Training e-learning course. So glad you're here today. First, a little housekeeping. I'm sure you're all very familiar with Zoom. We ask you to keep your sound off. We already got a chat. Oh, somebody said hello. Thank you. You can chat if you have any questions or technical difficulties, and somebody raised their hand. Can you hear me? Jessica, would you like to say something? No. Okay. One of the things I'm going to say is we will hold all questions till the end of the formal presentation. So you can put questions in the chat at any point or in the Q&A, but we'll be doing the presentation first, and then you'll have a chance to ask questions. But as you think of them, please put them in the chat. So that's good for Zoom. Okay, now I'd like to introduce my co-presenter. I'm really honored to be co-presenting with Michigan Department of Transportation Compliance Specialist Kevin Wassam, who joined the National RTAP Review Board in the spring of 2023. Kevin's been with Michigan DOT since 2011 and has had many successes, including implementing lean process improvement for the Office of Passenger Transportation, for compliance management, and moving all of these processes online. Kevin was one of the experts who helped review and guide our ADA driver training e-learning course, and we are most grateful for his expertise as well as for his presentation today. And for those who do not know me, I'm Kara Marcus. I'm the Knowledge and Resource Manager for National RTAP. So now I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to talk to you a little bit about how the ADA driver training e-learning course was developed. Kevin?
Okay, thanks, Kara. If you're not familiar with the review board for National RTAP, these are the kinds of activities that we work on behind the scenes throughout the year. And one of the things the review board wanted to create was a new training class about what drivers would need to know to be compliant with the ADA. And as it would have it, at the first board meeting in 2023 was also my first board meeting as a member. Part of our agenda that session was creating an outline and reviewing the first draft that Kara had created. But then a subcommittee of the board, there were about 3 or 4 of us on the committee, went through the final draft, made some suggestions and recommendations, and then the session program was sent to FDA. So they reviewed it and they're also on board with it. And after everybody went through that process, we put it online in the National RTAP e-learning portal last summer. And at the end, we'll see a copy of a handout for supervisors that's fantastic for tracking the ADA training that is required under the federal regulations as well.
Thank you, Kevin. And we'll show you now how you can access it. Very, very easy. Just type in any browser, nationalrtap.org, and you'll see a row of purple buttons. The second one after home is resources. And if you mouse over that, you'll see what we call a mega menu. And under the second column, training, you'll see National RTAP e-learning. Just click on that and you'll see a screen like the one shown in the bottom corner. The courses are easy to see what they are. ADA driver training is one of the first courses since it's alphabetical. And e-learning is free for rural and tribal transit providers and state RTAPs. So if you haven't signed up, we encourage you to. And if you need help accessing or using our e-learning, you can email e-learning@nationalrtap.org, or chat with us at the top of any of the national RTAP.org web pages from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. We also, you can see right next to the e-learning, have another resource on ADA, the ADA Toolkit. And that's sort of an encyclopedia about everything about ADA, not just driver training, but everything you need to know about the regulations and how they affect transit. And also under information, there are topic guides. We have an ADA topic guide that includes national RTAP resources, FTA resources, and additional resources that we've carefully selected. We have other resources in our resource library. So we really do want to help transit agencies understand and comply with ADA.
Okay, so this is the intro. Welcome to ADA driver training. This course will train rural and tribal transit drivers on what they need to know to safely and professionally provide service for passengers with disabilities and to be compliant with the ADA regulations.
So we're going to be showing you some screenshots from our ADA driver training. This is just a little bit of it, and it's a lot more interactive in the e-learning course than we can get in a PowerPoint. So we do encourage you to take the course to really see what you can get from the entire training. The course contents covers a lot. At the following of the completion of the course, the learner will take a quiz, and if the learner successfully completes the quiz, which means 100%, you have to get an A+, you will get a certificate of completion. Please note that this is not a certification. National RTAP does not provide certifications, but we provide certificates of completion for our e-learning courses. And these don't expire. Individual transit agencies can decide how often they might want their drivers or any other staff to take our courses. So the course contents really covers a lot. Disability information, such as types of disabilities, disability sensitivity, and more. Like I said, more than we can fit on a PowerPoint screen. Service types and levels, such as fixed route, demand response, etc. Passenger assistance, how to assist passengers with disabilities using lifts, ramps, wheelchairs, helping them with packages, working with their personal care assistants or PCAs if they use medical devices, as well as special considerations, such as passengers who travel with service animals, children with disabilities, or even persons with disabilities who travel with children, guests, challenging situations, and emergencies that involve persons with disabilities on buses.
Okay, so as you can imagine, a lot of these requirements are based in the federal regulations. That's what CFR stands for in the statute citations, is the Code of Federal Regulations. The first resource listed is the FTA ADA circular. It's a very large document if you haven't seen it. It's about 300 pages or so. And it does delve into all manners of transit. So there's information in there for light rail and passenger ferries, and you name a mode of transit, it's in there. But if you need a quick answer to an ADA related question, the table of contents on this document is very, very friendly. It's almost reads like an index. So you'd be able to find something very quickly and refer to it if you had to. The specific regulations are the next few listed here. Section 37 deals with transportation services for individuals with disabilities. These are regulations in addition to the actual ADA. The ADA is the Department of Justice regulation. The FTA section is sectioned out to be in their own own section of the federal regulations. And some specific ones that are of note in our presentation is section 37.129, which describes the types of service that a public transit agency must provide. 37 section 1.65, that has all the requirements pertaining to lift use and securement requirements for folks with mobility devices. Part 38 is a separate section. That's the ADA accessibility specs for transportation vehicles. This is regulation that tells transit agencies what their fleet must be comprised of, and other topics such as ADA equivalent service if you're buying inaccessible vehicles and things of that nature. And then part 27 deals with the non-discrimination on the basis of disability. So it's kind of like the ADA's version of the Title VI regulations. It's all incorporated to say, these are the rights of an ADA passenger. These are the things you must comply with. And these are some of the things that you don't have to do in a given situation. So it gives some clarity about whose responsibilities are on each side, the passenger and the agency.
And these links are available on a page in the e-learning course, as well as this PowerPoint, which will be posted on the National RTAP website within a week of this presentation today. So you can easily get to them. And when you're in the e-learning course, if you click on a link, it will open up in one of your browser windows, and it won't take you out of the e-learning course. So you'll still be able to get back to where you were. So there are different types of disabilities, and for the purpose of this training, National RTAP decided to use the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, definitions of disabilities. So disability is defined as a condition of the body or mind that makes it difficult for the person with the condition to conduct certain activities and interact with the world around them. So disabilities can affect a person's hearing, movement, thinking, remembering, learning, communicating, hearing, and mental health. And within those, there are many variations. For example, for vision, somebody can be completely blind, legally blind, or low vision. All of those people would be considered to have a visual or vision disability. Now, some disabilities may be hidden or not easy to see, and that doesn't mean that the person doesn't have a disability. They do. If somebody says they have a disability and wants to ride on the bus, they are treated like they have a disability and offered all the considerations for all passengers with disabilities. So the source for this is from the CDC, and the link is below.
I think this is a terrific quotation from our ADA toolkit that sums up the agency's responsibility towards our ADA passengers. Treat customers with disabilities with courtesy and respect. Give customers with disabilities the same information and choices that you give other customers. There's no reason to single them out or treat them any differently. They may board the bus differently, exit the bus differently, be secured differently, but they are passengers who need to use your service, just like other members of the public, perhaps even more so than some other folks would, and they're dependent on you. So you want to make sure that each and every time they ride with you, that it's a pleasant and comfortable experience.
And this part of the ADA driver training e-learning is one of the interactive segments that expands upon us on that topic. So some customer service tips from cartoon characters showing with disabilities. Somebody who has a hearing disability might say, "Don't let objects obstruct my view when you are speaking. Don't raise your voice. Let me know if there is a spoken announcement." somebody with a visual disability who uses a cane and walks with a guide service animal can say, drivers may ask what task the service animal has been trained to perform. However, drivers can't require identification for a service animal. A rider who uses a wheelchair may say, don't touch my wheelchair without my permission. It is an extension of my body. Don't assume that you or anybody else but me knows how to operate my wheelchair. The last character in this infographic is walking with a cane and has a physical disability and says, treat me with courtesy and respect. Give me the same information and choices that you give other customers. So these are good customer service tips for drivers and really everybody involved in transit.
Okay, varying levels of assistance levels that you may be in a position to provide to ADA passengers. Section 37.129 outlines all of these different scenarios and responsibilities. It provides that transit providers are required to provide complimentary paratransit service that is origin to destination, and that's in subsection A of the requirement, to people that meet ADA qualifications. The transit provider can decide whether door-to-door service or curb-to-curb service would be more appropriate based on the circumstance. If the person does require door-to-door service, then the agency must provide it. That is specifically stated also in 37 section or section 37.129. Some transit agencies may also decide to provide door-through-door service on a very limited basis. I don't think it's very common, but in some cases might be appropriate. All of these things want to be specified in an agency policy that's available to the passengers for review. A curb-to-curb type service would be the driver helping the passenger on and off the bus and to the curb or edge of the road. A door-to-door type service would be the driver helping the passenger on and off the bus and to the outside of the door of the home, school, or business, or wherever they've been taken to be dropped off. And then the last option, the door-through-door option, that's where the driver would help the passenger from the bus to just inside the door of the destination. You don't want to get into a habit of sending your drivers into people's homes or things like that, but getting them to the door and assisting through would be appropriate in some instances.
Just like there are driver responsibilities, there are also rider responsibilities. And the FTA ADA circular, which we introduced earlier, lists the following rider responsibilities. 1, caring for a service animal is the responsibility of a passenger or their personal care assistant if they use one. It is not the responsibility of the driver or anybody else in the transit agency. 2, when scheduling paratransit eligibility interviews and assessment appointments, transit agencies are not responsible for delays created by applicants. So it's also the responsibility of the rider to be on time for that. Transit agencies can also list responsibilities that they expect from their riders on their website and in their print materials, and many of them do. In the e-learning, we have actually, I think we do have this here. So I'm going to click. No, it's only in the e-learning. But we have a lot of passengers shown in this that will say what they do. And as I remember, it's, I will not litter, I will leave the aisles clear of debris, I will be quiet while riding the bus as best I can, things like that. So you'll see it in the e-learning.
Okay, and it's not only drivers who deal with the passengers. It's also people in your office, particularly dispatchers and schedulers. We all know that the dispatchers are the central communication. Uh, they take the calls. Uh, they work together to keep the buses moving efficiently and cost effectively. And they're usually the first point of contact. If an ADA passenger were to contact an agency to schedule a ride, they're going to talk to a scheduler or the dispatcher themselves. They create the daily schedules for demand response, complimentary paratransit, and the deviated fixed route service. And their input would also be helpful in the creation of fixed routes. If they are aware of areas that they're frequently traveling to with demand response or these other modes, perhaps it makes sense to expand or create a fixed route to accommodate those service areas. One important note is about when you're communicating with your dispatcher or the dispatcher to the driver, is make sure that the conversations are held on these radios are courteous, professional, and don't have a lot of extraneous detail about the passengers and things like that, because these communications are accessible to the public. So it's, very important to communicate as if you were certain someone was right there in the room with you.
So lifts are a very important part of helping passengers with disabilities on and off a bus. This ADA driver training has more than this for instructions about lifts, but this is one of the segments. The very important note is that all lifts are different based on manufacturer specifications. So this is one lift. The lift on your bus may be by a different manufacturer. It may look and work somewhat differently. National RTAP e-learning also has videos on lift deployment from many of the most popular lift manufacturers. So look at those in addition to this ADA driver training to see exactly how to use your lift that you have from a specific manufacturer. And if it's not on National RTAP e-learning, go to your manufacturer because all of them provide training on how to use their lifts. So basically, there's similar and different things for side lifts and rear lifts, but you should leave sufficient space between the lift and the curb to board passengers, or park close enough to deploy the lift on the curb and the sidewalk. With rear lifts, ensure that the toe guard flap folds up and down. And with all vehicles, make sure that you stop in a smooth, solid surface so that there's no gap between the lift, there's no difficult surface for the passenger with a disability or mobility aid to have to get on or off the lift, and always inform the passenger before the lift is engaged.
Okay, one of the really great features of this e-learning class is a great section on one of the most important components of providing ADA service, and that's the lift that's used to help people get on and off the bus. So when you're operating your lift, you want to stop on level ground with room for the platform to completely deploy. So try to find a nice flat surface. That might require moving a little further down from a store entrance or somewhere where they might be to have the most optimum loading area. Make sure the vehicle is secure. Put the vehicle in park, set the parking brake, turn on the four-way so other vehicles know that you're seated there. They'll be aware that something is going on, and they'll be looking out as well. When you deploy the lift, you want to do it from outside the bus and standing on the ground next to the vehicle. If necessary, you'll assist the passenger onto the lift. Sometimes they need a little push. There's a little bit of a ramp on the foot plate before it folds up, and things like that. So they may need some assistance getting from the ground onto the lift platform itself. Once he's on the platform, make sure that the passenger locks any mobility device brakes. When the lift is in motion, you want to make sure that none of the motion of the lift is going to make their mobility device slide back and forth. If the brakes are engaged, it should sit much more securely on that platform without moving. At power wheelchair, ask the passenger to turn the power off so they don't inadvertently hit one of the controls that would make it, lurch forward or backwards. They get off to a quicker start than a manual mobility device. So definitely make sure that that's turned off. You want to make sure that the passenger's mobility devices are completely on the platform. You want to make sure that one of the, the rear tires aren't, over the foot plate. You want to make sure that they're centered on the platform and one of the wheels isn't teetering on the edge or anything like that. If the lift securement has handles, they're usually up on the side where you would reach up and grab them. You can instruct the passengers that they may want to take a hold of those. Some lifts also have the securement belt that goes across so to prevent them, if they were to move, that the belt catch them before falling. When you're raising and lowering the lift, you've got the lift control in one hand. Watch your feet and kind of keep, a guide on the chair as it's going up. If it's just a little bit of movement, you might be able to prevent some of that rolling back and forth. When the lift is level with the floor, advise the passenger that they can move from the platform on to the bus itself. You'll definitely want to make sure that the lift is fully up in the position and that there's no gap between the lift and the bus floor. And there's a pressure plate there with an alarm that would let you know if they've gone too early or something like that. But definitely want to make sure that there's no gap and not instruct them to move until the lift is completely secure at the top. Once they've gotten there, you want to let the passenger know where the securement location is going to be, and they can move into position while you're getting the lift back in the stow position for the ride. And then when you get on the bus, you'll get them all set up in the securement area, get them secured with the securement systems and make sure that those are all secure and properly attached before you begin the ride.
Okay, just like lifts, ramps are on many ADA accessible buses. So just like lifts, all ramps are different based on manufacturer specifications. And we don't have necessarily ramp training on our e-learning. So go to the manufacturers for their training on how best to use specific bus ramps. But like lifts, leave enough space between the ramp and the curb to board passengers or park close enough to deploy the ramp on the curb or sidewalk. Stop the vehicle in an area with smooth, solid surface leading up to it. The use of the kneeling feature, which allows the bus itself to be lowered so that the bottom step is closer to the curb, may also be necessary to achieve the required ramp slope. Just like a lift, always inform the passenger before the ramp is engaged. And this is very important. Drivers are required to report lift or ramp failures to the dispatcher immediately. It may or may not be possible to continue in service if the ramp can be deployed manually when necessary. They're made to be deployed in an automated fashion, but they may be able to be deployed manually if the automation is not working for some reason.
Okay, For wheelchair securement, you as a transportation provider are required to use a securement system to secure a mobility device. The passengers, however, may or may not require that an individual permit their wheelchair to be secured. There are some differences in these regulations that you'll want to read through and take a look at. An agency may not deny transportation to a wheelchair or user on the grounds that the device itself cannot be secured or restrained satisfactorily by the vehicle's securement system. That's section 37.165. A transit agency is not required to transport an individual who refuses to allow their wheelchair to be secured if the agency's policies require securement. A note about policies, again, I think I mentioned it earlier, policies have to be known and available to your passengers. If they're unaware of what their responsibilities are, then this may turn into an issue. A lot of requests for separate services or reasonable modifications or things like that can be avoided if the passenger knows what your specific agency's policies are, and they can decide whether or not they want to utilize your service based on those.
And we have,
sorry. I'm sorry, Karen. And these securement policies are up to the transit agency. The federal regulations here do offer a degree of latitude in what the agency can decide for themselves how they're going to operate. So you don't find that latitude in a lot of federal regulations. So these do have some flexibility in favor of the transit agency, as much as they're to the benefit of the ADA rider as well.
And we're not going to show all of our wheelchair securement training in this webinar, but we do have a video in our ADA driver training that shows general precepts of wheelchair securement, as well as the same place we have the lifts training by individual manufacturers. We have wheelchair securement training by individual manufacturers. And again, you should go to your actual manufacturers for their training too. So power scooter securement. If a passenger is using a power scooter, and many more are nowadays, you can recommend that they transfer to a seat and that the empty scooter should be secured. But they do not have to. If the passenger wishes to ride on their scooter, you must allow them to. The scooter and the passenger, if all passengers are required to wear seat belts, must be secured. And if not, the scooter must be secured. Extension straps or loops can aid in securing scooters. Many transit agencies will offer these to provide to mobility aid users and power scooter users with straps that can attach to their device for ease of securement, and not to keep, but just to use while they're riding on their bus.
Okay, oversized mobility devices. These are addressed in Part 38. Specifications for the vehicles, not specifications for the rider and driver responsibilities. This one requires that vehicles accommodate occupied wheelchairs weighing a minimum of 600 pounds and having a minimum platform of 30 inches by 48 inches. Many lifts and vehicles are manufactured to accommodate larger and heavier wheelchairs these days. The caveat is that the transit system is obligated to carry a wheelchair and an occupant if the lift and the vehicle can physically accommodate them, unless doing so would create legitimate safety requirements for other passengers. Here in Michigan, we have a state vehicle contract that our agencies to order from, and our minimum specifications on our contract are 1,000 pounds for the weight capacity, and the platform is 37 inches by 54. So Michigan offers a standard option above and beyond the requirements of the federal regulations.
And going along with this, accommodating bariatric riders. To accommodate a rider and a mobility device that are together too heavy to be safely put on the lift together, the rider could be asked to board separately from the device if it's safe to do so. You can take a look at an example, Example 8 and Appendix C in 49 CFR Part 37. And if you're doing this accommodation, another individual, such as the rider's personal care assistant, would need to operate the unoccupied mobility device on the lift because the driver couldn't be helping the passenger at the same time they are getting the mobility device.
Okay. Priority seating. Fold down seats are installed in the securement area, are often designated as priority seating for seniors and people with disabilities. The transit agencies can remove seating from the securement area as long as priority seating still meets the regulatory requirements in section 38.27. An interesting note about this regulation, it's very, very specific. It goes into a level of detail that even specifies the measurements on the letters and the color schemes of the signs that must be posted on the vehicle to let riders know where the priority seating area is. So definitely take a minute and get familiar with that, because a lot of the sign requirements on some of the buses I've seen haven't met the size and spec and color requirements of the regulations, and we've had to make some changes. So make sure you're familiar with those.
And package assistance is something that policies can dictate from transit agencies from one to another. Bus drivers in general are not required to help passengers with items such as grocery bags. The transit agencies can have policies that require passengers to be responsible for their own personal belongings, but many transit agencies have policies that allow bus operators to assist with a certain number or weight of bags. It's considered good customer service, and for passengers with disabilities, it's very, very helpful. This is detailed in Appendix C to 49 CFR Part 37. Please note, and this is important, the policy must be applied equally to all riders, whether or not they have a disability or whether or not they state they have a disability. So if you're getting a request for packages and you don't have a policy about it, consider strongly writing one.
Yeah, kind of a word about policies, and this would tie in to the personal oxygen tanks and medical devices. You know, you want to have a written policy for this too. I was at the APTA Legal Affairs conference in New Orleans last week, and the ADA portion of the session talked about not only the accessibility of vehicles and rider and driver responsibilities, but ADA requirements of your policies and notifications. They have to be, if they're distributed in written format, they have to be in an ADA accessible font that people with vision impairments would be able to use, or scanners would be able to read and voice the material out to the person. If you publish them on your website, you have to make sure they're published in a font that a screen reader application would be able to recognize and read to the person who's using it. And the requirement also is that any of your policies pertaining to ADA have to be published in the same manner as any other policy or any other information that you publish. So if you put everything on your website, then all of this information has to go on your website. You can't post different things in different places when it comes to ADA. So, but getting back to the personal oxygen tanks, you cannot prohibit an individual with such a device from traveling on your vehicle. But a written policy, you can specify what conditions they have to meet for that device to be on your bus. Respirators, concentrators, or the oxygen tanks must be properly secured. And some transit agencies do provide a special holder for a tank, although that is not required by ADA. The ADA just requires that it's secured. It doesn't specify how. And most of my agencies have told me that tanks really aren't all that common anymore. They said it's been a long time since they've seen a tank. Most people use the smaller portable device, or the concentrators have become much more prevalent.
Whether you have a person who has or hasn't a disability on the bus, people all have their different personalities, and you're bound to, as a driver, come across challenging situations and potential non-compliance with your rules and policies. But under the ADA regulations, a transit agency can have a policy, such as requiring mobility devices to be secured, and can refuse to transport a passenger who will not allow their device to be secured. That could be one challenging situation that a passenger could get angry about. And there are many other passenger scenarios that may be challenging for drivers. For tips for helping passengers safely and courteously in challenging situations, see National RTAP's Problem Passengers Training Module. It's a learner's guide for managing difficult passengers and situations. And in our ADA driver training, we provide a number of videos that will help drivers when they confront somebody who is upset, angry, or even out of hand.
Yeah. And just for reference, the angry looking gentleman in the last slide, that was not me. So getting to rider no-shows. Transit agencies can establish a process to temporarily suspend the ability of the passenger to ride with them if the rider has demonstrated a pattern of missing trips that they've called to schedule with you. In counting the number of no-shows in your policy, you cannot include trips that are missed due to circumstances beyond the rider's control. If it's weather related, if they weren't able to get from the building to the pickup spot because the business had not, cleared the sidewalk, or it was too icy, or things like that. It could be something agency related. Your vehicles are running behind, or your vehicle is in, a condition where it can't move or something like that. That's not the rider's fault. That doesn't count towards a no-show. Again, the agencies are free to decide what the number and frequency of a no-show is going to be before you impose the service suspension. And again, these should all be in a written and clearly communicated policy, so the passenger is aware of what your stance on no-shows is, and what's going to happen if they consistently show the pattern. So it's not a big shock or a surprise to them if they call for a ride and told that they've been suspended from riding. The passenger can only be suspended for a reasonable period of, generally considered to be 30 days or less. If you start getting beyond a month suspension, FTA considers that to be excessive. And part of your policy must be that the passenger is given the opportunity to appeal the decision. If they do appeal the decision, there is a timeline on how fast you have to act and how fast you have to process the appeal and render a decision. If there is a passenger no-show, the driver should document this per that written policy. they'll want to notify dispatch. The picture here, gentleman's notating it on a paper manifest. I believe most of the electronic dispatching, the tablet features have this information as well. And I think most dispatch software can log these instances in a passenger's record so they know when, where, time they occurred. So in the process of the suspension decision, you have all the documentation you need to prove that this is why.
And there will be many times for many reasons, some of them Kevin stated, weather related or other reasons, that there are late bus arrivals. When this happens, transit agencies really must provide on time complimentary paratransit services to AGA eligible individuals if it is under their control to provide the service. And the late bus arrivals cannot be counted in determining a pattern of no-shows. So, a lot of times it is outside of the driver's control. If there's an accident and they're stuck in traffic, many other reasons, but it is not really the passenger's fault ever when the bus is late.
Okay, faulty equipment. If you have a bus, lift, or a ramp that is not working, you must make an alternative format of transit available if the wait time for the next bus is more than 30 minutes. The bus with the inoperable lift must be removed from service and not be put back into service until the lift or ramp is repaired. There is a caveat to this as well. If taking the vehicle out of service would create capacity constraints for your agency where you would not be able to meet the demand of your ridership, you are allowed to keep a vehicle in service with an inoperable lift for a very short period of time. And it depends on your service area population. If you're under 50,000 people, the vehicle can run for 5 days. If you're over 50,000 in service area population, it can only run for 3 days.
Now, there are many safety issues that drivers confront, and bloodborne pathogens is one of the very challenging issues. It's very important that drivers are trained, and this is not just for people with disabilities, but for all passengers. It's important to use, as you have to use personal protective equipment, especially gloves, cleaning with antiseptic. And I think where I have my thing over this, it's hard to see the writing. Applying an absorbent solidifier using a scoop or a scraper to remove the bloodborne pathogens, cleaning areas with a decontaminant, removing the protective equipment carefully if it is contaminated so as not to further contaminate everything, placing all the discarded material in a biohazard bag, and then the driver must very quickly wash their hands with soap and running water. But if water is not available, scrub with an antiseptic towel and wash hands as soon as possible. Bring filled bags to the designated location at the operations and maintenance facility. Complete an incident report about the bloodborne pathogens and replace items that were used from the spill kit as needed. Now note that a rider who is actively bleeding poses a direct threat to health and safety of themselves, the driver, and other passengers. Contact the dispatcher and immediately an emergency medical service for help to come as soon as possible.
Okay, I referenced at the beginning the training documentation form. Here it is. This is a fantastic way of documenting your training. A section of the federal regulations, section 37.173, does describe training requirements and the documentation process that goes along with it. So you have to demonstrate as an agency that your drivers and operators were trained to proficiency. And this is a great way to do that and have documentation that that requirement was met. It's important to note, though, however, with this form does not replace any requirements in the entry-level driver training requirements, and it does not satisfy the ELDT requirements. This would be something that is done over and above under 37.173 requirements, not the motor carrier ELDT requirements. So.
And when you're in the ADA driver training course, you'll see a button at the top for resources, and just click on that and you'll get the hands-on evaluation form and be able to download it and save it to your computer. So like we said, there's much, much more in the e-learning course. A lot of them are videos and interactions that we couldn't include in a PowerPoint. Things like service animals and more on securement and PCAs and different things. There's little mini quizzes throughout, and then there's the quiz at the end. So we really encourage you to go to National RTAP e-learning to take the full course and then take the test and get your certificate. And now we're going to open up to questions. Before we do so, I just want to say that we can only entertain questions about the contents of the ADA driver training e-learning course during this webinar. We will not be able to take general ADA questions. I see there was one already, but we will be able to get back to that person afterwards and give them some guidance. You can ask, what else is included in the course, and anything about what we've already said if you need more clarification on what the course includes. Do want to also tell you that the ADA Office of Civil Rights is a great resource if you have questions for ADA, about ADA topics, as well as your regional FTA offices. So I see a question in the chat. Where can I find the evaluation form? Okay, I don't know if you're in National RTAP e-learning. I can even, if you're in it, where you would find it is, there's a little button sort of at the top of every screen that says resources, and just click on that and you will find it. But if there's no other questions, there might be time for me to go into the actual course and show you. So let's see, are there any other questions? There was one question, what do you consider the platform on an oversized mobility device? We will get back to that requester after this webinar. Are there any other questions? Feel free to raise your hand, chat, or put it in the Q&A. Okay, not right now. I'm going to go into e-learning. I'll show it to you. And here it is. So it looks just like it did in the slide. And I'm going to log in as me. And now when I'm logged in, I'll go to ADA driver training. And you can see I started at the evaluation is also separately. So you can get it from there. And the certificate of completion is there. So when you're in the course, here it is, resources. You can see the resources include all the circulars and regulations that we talked about, our ADA toolkit, our videos on wheelchair securements and lifts. And actually, interestingly enough, the hands-on evaluation is in the main section of the ADA driver training course rather than in the resources. So my apologies for that. Okay, are there any other questions? Well, thank you everybody for your time today and your interest. And thank you so much, Kevin, for providing this excellent presentation. We do hope that you take the course, and if you have any other questions, please let us know. Oh, you see a couple of thank yous. What I'm going to do now is go to the very last slide, and you'll see a QR code, and you can click on that with your phone and take our webinar survey. It's very brief. It'll take maybe about 5 minutes or less to complete. You'll also get an email tomorrow asking you to fill out the survey. So whatever you wish to do, we really do want your feedback. We got a nice comment. Thank you for filling our toolbox. You're very welcome. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of day and really have learned a lot about ADA. Thank you all.
Thanks for coming, everyone.